Hey, Jersey, what's going on? Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right. So I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight. I hope the title doesn't scare anybody off. This isn't going to be like an in-depth lesson on sweet picking or any of that sort of thing. This is just for the last several weeks. There's been every time there's at least one person that brings up, asking about how to get into sweet picking and stuff. And so we had already done that couple of lessons on triads a couple of weeks ago. So I thought this would be a good time just to kind of throw this in. And as usual, there are tabs available for the stuff that I'm going to be going over. So there's a link in the description for that. And there's also a link down there where you can download the free chord chart from Guitar Control. It's in PDF format. It's really handy because it's just on one page and it just has every chord that you could need. It just at a glance, and it's free to download. So click the link and get that. All right. So where are we watching from tonight? I got some of my regulars here besides Jersey, OG Jersey. So I'm just going to start calling you. Anybody here that this is their first time? Hey, and has anybody checked out that new? Oh, from Wales. Hi, Rise. First time. Awesome. Well, thank you. Welcome. Have any of you guys checked out that new single from Steve Vai, the Teeth of the Hydra? If you haven't checked it out, you need to check it out, and you need to don't just listen to it on Spotify. Go on YouTube and watch the video so you can actually watch him play when he does this. It's pretty amazing. Playing this guitar that's got like 5 necks on it, and there's one that I think is like a bass guitar, and then there's one that's in some kind of an open tuning, and then one in a regular tuning, one in like a drop D. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, that guitar is crazy too. I can't even imagine trying to play something like that. Well, first of all, I wouldn't have the skill set to do that, but just holding that thing, can you imagine how heavy that guitar must be? I mean, to stand there having that around your neck, I mean, that thing must weigh a ton. So it's pretty crazy. Oh, a harp on the back. Oh, yeah, that's right. I only watched the video once. I didn't know anything about it. It just happened to pop up, and so I watched it, but I really didn't have time. But so I haven't gotten back to watching it again. But it's pretty crazy. All right, so I hope that y'all had a chance to download those the tabs for what we're going to talk about tonight. And like I said, this isn't going to be like a huge in-depth thing. I want to keep it pretty laid back. So feel free to ask questions about what we're looking at, or just any guitar related stuff in general. This is a Q&A too, so just just whatever. But just kind of keep it kind of laid back, chill, just hang out for a little while, play some guitar, and hopefully you get something out of it. All right, so the Jersey. Yes, why do I suck? I don't know. I don't think I doubt that you suck, but you know, all boils down to practice, I guess. Uh, I'm a bit fuzzy. Well, I haven't shaved in quite a while, so we're going to start off. We're just going to look. We're just going to do some arpeggios that are just on 2 strings. So they're just going to be on the B and the high E string, and these are movable shapes. So if you look on there on your tabs, the first one it's showing that it's B major. So we've got the 12th fret on the B string with your second finger, and then the 11th fret on the high E with your first finger, and then the 14th fret on the high E with your fourth finger. So that's like a root position, 1, 3, 5. So if you remember from the triads, it's the first note of the major scale, then your third note, and then your fifth note. So you can move that around, and whatever note you're playing here, since the 12th fret is a B, this is B major. If we moved it down to the 5th fret, since it's an E, it would be E major. Same shape. So it's pretty handy. You can just kind of move it around. So the way that I like to practice this shape to make it so you can do cool stuff with it, like licks or whatever, is that I actually start at the top. So I'm like 5, 3, 1. Now, the way that I do it to make it have that nice triplet feel, you know, and a little faster, is that I do a downstroke on this 14, and then I do a pull off to the 12, and then an upstroke on the B string, and then starts over again with a downstroke again. So it's like down, pull, up. And like I said, you can move that around into whatever key you want. Now, just like when we talked about with the triads, if you want to change it from a major to a minor, all you have to do is take the third and move it down a half step. So we already said in this shape here, this is 1 and this is 3 and this is 5. So if we take 3 here and we move it down a half step, so it moves down to the 10th fret, but everything else stays the same. So we're still 14, now to 10, and then 12. So major and then minor. So a way to practice this is to just do the same thing that I'd already said, where you can start on this highest note and you can pick, do a downstroke, pull off to the B string, and then an upstroke. So like down, pull, up. So the major and the minor. Now you can do cool stuff with this, like follow like a chord progression. So if you had like a chord progression that was like an E minor, so it'd be like E minor, D major, C major, and then back to D major, and then start over again. So you could come up, here's your E minor, and then when you wanted to go down to the D major, you just shift down a whole step and switch to the major shape. Shift down a whole step again, still the major shape, it's a C major. Shift back up for D major, shift back up for E minor. So that's like a pretty simple, but still sounds nice, because it, you know, when you're playing arpeggio, you're creating a melody, or, you know, it's more musical sounding than just, you know, playing straight up the scale. All right, so that's for the 2-string arpeggios. So the rest of these are actually going to be built off of this. We're just going to keep adding in another string until we have 5 strings. Now there are 6-string arpeggios, but that's not the ones we're going to be looking at. We're just going to be looking at these 2, 3, 4, and then 5-string arpeggios. So before we move on to the 3-string arpeggios, does anybody have any questions about what we just went over with the 2-string ones, or just any guitar related stuff in general? All right, well, if nobody has any questions, then we'll move on. So, like I said, we're going to base these off of the same shapes that we already did. So we had our major shape here, right? So all we're going to do is we're going to add in a note onto the G string. So for this, it's going to be the 11th fret. So if you look at the first 3 notes, it looks like a D major chord. So that's our second inversion. So now we're still doing B, but the first note we're starting with here is F sharp. So that's our 5th. So we're like 5, 1, 3. So the same thing to make it minor is we're still going to be flattening the 3rd. So the note that we're playing here with our first finger on the high E string is our 3rd. So we just move that down to the 10th fret. And everything else stays the same. And if you look at those first 3 notes, now it looks like a D minor chord. Now, these are ones that I use a lot because this is like the easiest thing to play fast that has like melody to it, in my opinion. So this is where we can start actually looking at the whole sweeping technique part of it. So with this, you could like alternate pick it, so you could, but it's not really super efficient to play it that way. So if I'm descending this, I'll start here on the high note and I'll do just like I did on the other one. So I'm going to start with a downstroke. Now, normally I just do a pull off, but if you wanted to pick every note, you'd be down, and then when you go to the 10, it'd be up, and then when you go to the B string, it's going to be up, to the G string, it's going to be up, and then ascending would be the opposite, down, 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 up, or a hammer on. All right, so getting into using this technique, when you're changing strings, so like here, if I'm down, up, I did that upstroke, and the next note I'm going to play is on the B string. So when I do the upstroke, instead of like picking and pulling the pick away like if you were playing like a scale or something, what you want to do is let the pick come to a rest on the, obviously this is really not the technique you want, but just so you can see what's happening here. So the pick comes to a rest on the B string, so it's ready to play again for upstroke. And then when I go to the G string, same thing. So as I descend the scale, it'll be the same, as we keep going across. So what you want to do is just practice first, probably leave this note out at first. So you could just go, so you can practice that, picking and letting the pick come to a rest. So when you're playing all the way through an arpeggio, at first it might literally be that you're slow like that. And then you just pick up your speed. So this is definitely a case where you want to play it slow, and don't be in a big hurry to play it quick. Just play it slow and articulately, accurately. And then once you have that down where everything's all meshed together the way that it should be, then it's not too terribly difficult to increase your speed after that. It's just the initial technique and method and everything is what is tough at first. All right, so that is 2-string and 3-string arpeggios. And then our first look at the actual technique of sweep picking itself. So, does anybody have any questions thus far about this, or just any guitar related questions in general? So, like I said, the reason that I did this is because there's been at least one person every week that's asked about this. So, is anybody even here that that asked for it? Because that's the kind of Murphy's Law. Every time I've done something that's been like a request, the people that requested weren't there, and then they comment, "Oh, I had to see it in the rerun," but that's cool too. Way too technical for this old man. No, that's not true at all. You can do this. Just start off with the 2-string ones, even if you're on that for. I mean, I'm going through this in a matter of minutes, but it's not. This isn't something that you're just going to get these and you're going to be able to play through all 3 pages of this, today. it's not gonna happen. So you you don't you can just take the 2-string ones and just stick with that at first. Just work on just the shape, and then the minor one. So then it's just a matter of, if you wanted to play one, you like, you could, if you have a looper, maybe you can loop like a chord progression. So maybe you're, oh, you're welcome, Donna. Thank you. Hello, the Liberty Cause. Welcome. So you could like loop like a chord progression, so E minor. Well, let's just like make it simple. So we'll just like do E minor. 3. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, back to D. Now you got that to play over. So start off with the E minor. So we know E is here on the 17th fret. So now you could do like, 1 yellow. You could do this triplets: 1 yellow, 2 yellow, 3 yellow, 4 yellow. And that's going to fit over that, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then so on and so forth. So now the next one was D major. So we just move down. Here's D on the 15th fret. So we do the major shape. And then for C is a whole step below D. So move that shape down. And like I said, it's fairly simple, but you do, just take the first ones and just start with that. And you can always come back and watch the rerun of this as we go through the rest of it. I mean, I didn't want to break this down into like, 1 hour of 2-string and then 1 hour of 3. Nobody's going to have interest in, that long of a thing, I don't think. Oh, well, thank you, the Liberty Cause. I appreciate that. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you like the content, show me some love. Hit the button. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, then I guess we can move along again. So now we are going to look at 4-string arpeggios. So now if you printed off the tabs, or downloaded the tabs rather, it is, we're on page 2. So now, again, we're going to stay in the same thing. So we got B major, there's the 2-string, 3-string, and now 4-string. So that on the 4th string, on your D string, it's going to be the 13th fret. So we're 13 to 11 on the G, to 12 on the B, to 11 on the high E, to 14 on the high E. Now, again, the same deal we had with the with the other shape, switching from the major to minor, we just need to flatten our third. So this one's a little bit different. We have to do one extra step. So our third, so we move that down a half step again. So we're 14 to 10, 12 to 11 on the D string, and then 11 on the G string and 12 on the D string. So since that note's a third, we have to move it down too. And again, it's a movable shape, just like any of the rest of them. So with this one, I practice it just the same way like I did with the other ones. And now we have the extra notes. So for me, I like to pick, pull, up, 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 down, 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 hammer, pull, up. Or then the minor one. Whoops, I was doing an extra note there. My bad. Now, these particular ones right here, the 4-string ones, I don't use those ones nearly as much as I either use the 2, 3, or the 5. I don't know why this particular ones it's good to know them, especially since they're sitting in between the other shapes. If you remember from when we did the triad shapes, that was our first inversion. So if we take that, we have our first inversion shape starting on the D, G to the B string. And then if we look at it starting on the G string, it's second inversion. All right. Again, you could do the same thing with following a chord progression. Is a good way to practice it. Something I like to practice with them that it sounds a little bit weird is just to switch. If I start with the major, then just switch back and forth between major and minor. It sounds a little bit weird, but it's a kind of a good exercise to just really get your fingers working independent and, wanting to do this. All right, so that wraps it up for 4 strings. So the last one would be the 5-string arpeggios. So again, before we go on to the next one, does anybody have any questions? And again, it does not have to be about this necessarily. It can just be any guitar related questions, because that's what mostly this is just, a question and answer kind of a thing. But I like to have some kind of, actual content, like some kind of a lesson, is a general rule. I'm depressed. Where's my bourbon? I don't know where yours is, but I know where mine is. And I know where it's going to be here in a few minutes. Hi, Rick. Welcome. Let's see. How much time do you think it can take for someone to sweep pick fast? Well, everybody's a little bit different, down at the core, but it's a matter of just really spending a lot of time with it and being, tenacious to do it correctly and to try to just, speed past it. So I would really just start out, if the 3-string ones are as far as with the, because those are like I said, in my opinion, it's like one of the easiest things to play fast. There's a solo in one of my original songs that it has a whole thing I just follow a chord progression with with the 3-string ones like that, and it sounds really good. But it's not. It's easy. It sounds way harder than it is. But yeah, so there's really no way to really answer your question exactly. But if you just work slowly with it, make sure you're good and warmed up, and then try to spend like a good solid hour just focusing on working on the technique, and just be patient and work at it slow. Don't expect it for huge progress to be made overnight. It just doesn't work that way with this. But it's worth it in the end, because it sounds really awesome, and it's easier to play quickly that way than it is to play quickly like through a scale, in my opinion anyway. Let's see. The beauty of going from major to minor is if you're just playing with the bass player and other guitarists playing 5 chords, major minor shift sounds great. Yeah. I've used that for lots of different things, just sitting there playing. The one I really think sounds cool is to switch back and forth between minor and diminished. I think that sounds pretty cool too. But Rick, yeah, you said that you're late. So there are tabs for what we've gone over. So get those. We're not quite done with that. We got one more, the 5-string shapes to look at. It creates that neoclassical sound. Yeah. I really dig it. I'm a big fan of Yngwie, especially the old stuff. Have you ever been a session musician? Yeah, not enough or steady enough to like make a living at it, but I've done it. I've been hired to. I did some music for a. It was kind of a weird thing. It was a company that trains guide dogs, and they made like a infomercial for their service, and they hired me to do some basically the background music for the infomercial. So that was kind of cool. And then I've just done some various studio work for different people. A gal, I got hired to do some guitar tracks for a gal that was like making an audition tape for Nashville Star, I think, or one of them kind of shows. I'm pretty sure it was Nashville Star. Yeah, not a whole lot. That was something I always really wanted to do, but it's lots of competition in that world now. Yeah, I love the neoclassical sound too. A lot of them guys, the 80s was a great time for guitar, in my opinion. Yes, I have seen Malmsteen play with the Japanese Philharmonic. It's awesome. I've seen a couple of different ones where he's done that, and it's really great. All right, well, let's move along then here. So now we're at the last one that we're going to be looking at, is the 5-string ones. When sweeping with tapping, does the right hand have to be closer to the neck? Well, it can be, but I don't recommend that. I'm actually going to, after I show these, I was actually going to go over that. So stick around for a few minutes, panels, and I'll hopefully we'll be able to answer, we'll address your question. Well, I know we'll address your question, but hopefully we'll answer it for you. Got a picture of blind guy jamming to you playing Ozzy. Okay. All right. So, as you can probably guess, we're going to use, again, the same shape. The reason that I chose B also, by the way, is just because I thought this was a neutral spot. As you start working with these and moving them around, you're going to find that the further you are, lower in the neck, the frets are further apart, your arm's in a weird angle, and it becomes really awkward. Then once you get up above the 12th fret, really above the 15th fret, then it becomes awkward for a different reason. The frets are closer together. So this is kind of a neutral spot to start with. So this is like a good area to begin with this, in my humble opinion. All right, so with this, we're going to just add in one more note. Now we're going to add in a note on the A string. So 14th fret of the A string, and this is B. So now we're actually going to be just in straight up root position. So we got 1, 3, which is the 13th fret of the D string, to the 11th fret of the G string. It was our 5. So if you remember from our triads, that's the major shape that's on those 3 strings. Now, from there, we go to the 12th fret on the B string. That's 1 again. To the 11th fret on the high E. 3 to the 14th fret on the high E. 5. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Now, I personally really dig these 5-string ones. I was really late to the game coming with playing these. I either did everything like the full-on across all 6 strings, which is considerably more difficult, or just the 3-string ones. And then it was actually what got me into doing the shapes this way was my band. When I joined, they had already had one album prior to me joining, and so anyhow we play songs off that album, and so I had to learn the solo for this one song, and that's that guitar player, that's how he played. I tried arranging them in different arpeggios that I was more comfortable with, and it just didn't sound the same, so it basically forced me to have to do it. So now to make it minor, same deal. So we just take our 3rd and we flatten it a half step. So 1, 3 would be here, so flat 3 is 12. So there's 1, minor 3rd, 5, 1. Our 3rd before, our major 3rd was here on the 11th fret, so now we're going to move it to the 10th fret. And then the note on 14 stays the same. Now, these shapes are, they're harder. Like I said, don't try to learn all these today, or master them per se. I guess it also kind of depends on your skill level too, but it isn't something necessarily you're going to do in a day or in a couple of days. Now, as far as with the sweeping technique, just like I said before, so I play the A string and my pick just comes to a rest on the D string. Then I play the note on the D string, pick comes to a rest on the G string, and so on and so forth. Now when I descend, same thing. So again, I'm trying to, so you can see, I just let the pick come to a rest. So it's like one long continuous downstroke and then one long continuous upstroke. All right. So to answer Panos' question earlier, I hope you're still here, is tapping with the arpeggio, adding in another note. So since this note here is 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you go 2.5 steps above the last note, it's your octave again. So I can now, what he was asking was about picking. Oh, thank you, Liberty Cause. I appreciate you tuning in. Okay. Yeah. So when you're ascending or descending for that matter, you got your hand. So this is something too that's kind of important that I guess I should talk about. it really, I mean, I see lots of players who don't do this, but this is just in, my humble opinion. You are so much better off to have just one picking position. That if I'm alternate picking, I'm right here. If I'm strumming, I'm still right here. If I'm like trying to, just like arpeggiate chords or whatever, I'm just right here. So that way, if I want to palm mute, all I have to do is set my hand down and I'm in the right spot on top of the bridge. So even when I'm sweep picking, I still want to be back here. You don't want it to be like, oh, I'm doing that now, so I'm going to move up. So when you're doing this, as I'm ascending up, I'm letting like this part of my hand right here rest on the strings that I've played, and it just kind of glides across, is to keep them quiet so you don't have a bunch of background noise. Now I'm playing with a clean tone, and it's really easy to sound like you're good at it with a clean tone in comparison to with a distortion tone. Not insinuating that I sound like I'm good at this, but when you're playing with like overdrive, you hear a lot more background noise. You bump the guitar, you're not touching the strings; they just vibrate on their own and start making all kinds of noise. So you have to really do that. So where we run into problems is when you go to tap. So now I've got to come all the way up, tap, pull off, and then come back to pick. Now, you could so this is the thing where I've seen people do this, where they're picking up here, so that way they can be right there to tap. But I think that the difference, I mean, if you can do that, the difference between doing that and playing it down here is just some practice. And it's so much better, in my opinion, to do it that way. Anytime you can have total consistency, or as much consistency as possible with anything with playing, it's going to make it easier. It's just less stuff to have to remember, or less movements, less motions. Now, the tabs don't have that included tap note, but that's why I said, that's where it is. So you go from your last note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets away, and that is your octave. Now, that's obviously not the only note that you can play. So if I go here, 5, 6, that's a flat 7. You can tap, basically you just go, mess around with it. Any note that you tap that you think sounds good is a good note. If it sounds good, it is good. All right, so that takes care of it for what we're going to be looking at with these arpeggios. Now, yes, you can. You can add in the extra note, or the extra string, which actually adds in 2 more notes. But with that particular shape, it's just a lot harder. So there are shapes that are, different arpeggio shapes that I use for going across all 6 strings. And maybe we'll do that in a future, and if there's interest in that. Or maybe just something I'll just, take 5 minutes someday and show, and it might not necessarily be what the the focus of the whole hour is, or whatever. All right, so does anybody have any questions about any of that, or like I said, any guitar related stuff in general? I don't think you're the class stunts, Jersey. Something about a technique like this too, where it's like really challenging. Partially, what will make you or break you is your motivation as to whether or not it's something you really want to be able to do. So, when I first discovered sweep picking, it was from Jason Becker and Marty Friedman. And I just thought it was absolutely amazing. And it was probably about 1990, something like in that area. And I started trying to do it. I wasn't very good at it at all. And I was really, young, arrogant, and cocky, and thought, oh, I should just be able to do this right away. And it was hard. And then the grunge movement happened, and guitar solos kind of got, pushed to the back burner. And because, always, playing in bands, working musician, kind of had to go with the flow. So I just kind of didn't do anything with it for years. And then there was like a resurgence in the early 2000s of, real guitar players and bands. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like the grunge didn't have stuff like that, because I'm a huge fan of Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, amazing guitar player. But yeah, it can't remember what the hell I was just talking about. So you're not the only one that's old, Jersey. Oh yeah. So anyhow, that style started coming back, and then I started having students asking about it, and I was like, all right, well, I gotta get it. So I just sat down and focused on it, and spent, billion hours working on it. And I'm not like real fantastic at it now. But I can do it. All right, so nobody has any questions about any of this, or just any guitar related questions in general? Where do you see the sessions headed? You mean this? Like I say every time, not a clue. I plan on being here tomorrow. No idea at this point what I'm going to do. All right, well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then we can wrap this up. But like I said, I do plan on being here tomorrow, same time. That is my plan. If not, I'll see you next week. But if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave comments, yada yada yada, all that. Stuff that everybody's always talking about with the algorithm and all that. Don't really understand it, don't really care, but it's important for the channel and for me to be able to keep my job. So show me some love. All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight. I really appreciate it. And for anybody that came in really late, or just maybe now popped in, you can watch this on rerun, and there is a link down in the description where you can download the tabs that go along with everything that we talked about. There's also a link in there where you can download a really useful free chord chart from Guitar Control. So, get your free goodies, and I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. So again, everybody, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great night.